Good morning to all of you out there. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Cignal TV, channels 8 and 250, as well as on facebook.com/onenewsph. And if you can't find us on Facebook once in a while because of intermittent internet, then later on you can also watch us via YouTube. In fact, many of our replays can be seen on YouTube, One News PH. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagtangkilik, sa inyong pagsabay sa programang agenda. We will try to share with you as much information as we can through the day. Today, we have 3 guests. Medyo marami-rami, so mabilisan tayo. Before that, let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. And here we go. Okay, Sinovac gets World Health Organization emergency use okay. The IATF mulls vaccine passport or pinag-iisipan na ng IATF yung vaccine passport because it is something that is already globally trending. Baka mahuli po tayo. Senator Manny Pacquiao hits Secretary Cusi. Hindi po sinuntok, sinita, pinintasan, kaya criticize. Focus on blackouts, not politics. Kasi ayan po, kakapush ng PDP laban na conference. Ngayon na black eye yung DOE kasi namumroblema tayo sa kuryente. Pag-uusapan natin yan mamaya sa isang sangay concerning the distribution of power in Luzon, on the island of Luzon, the National Grid Corporation. Okay, on the lower half of the Philippine Star, there we go. Okay, drug war records have no national security implications, according to Senator Frank Drilon. Aga family get jobs in Muntinlupa. DILG asks why. Ako, sino ba ito? Si Aga Mulak? Ay, pambira naman. Ay, yan ang sinasabi natin eh. In one hand says, let's promote vaccination. Pag may na-vaccinate na, parang questionable. Alanganin, time, we will make a big issue. Huwag na natin sayangin yung ating oras sa kung bakit. Basta nagpabakuna sila, thank you. Bayanihan 2 extended till the end of the year. And we will continue with other news here on Agenda. Let's go to the stories behind the front page. The World Health Organization approved the COVID-19 vaccine of Sinovac Biotech for global emergency use, listing or EUL. Malacanang welcomed the World Health Organization approval, saying it would boost the confidence of Filipinos in the Chinese-developed jabs. Okay. Then, meanwhile, Tropical Dante leaves 3 people dead after causing landslides and flooding in Davao and Soc-Sargen regions yesterday. We will talk more about the country's response efforts later in the program with spokesperson Mark Timbal of the NDRRMC for updates. And Senate Minority Leader Frank Drilon says records of the Duterte administration's war on drugs do not have national security implications, in contrast to what the president claims. And today's quotation is very timely. Our word for the day comes from the book of Romans in the Bible, chapter 12, verse 16. Congratulations, Team Agenda. Very timely quotation. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight. Bakit po niyo ko sinasabing napaka-timely, maganda itong napili ng Team Agenda? Alam niyo po, kahapon, nagbigay ng press conference, or at least kahapon ko napanood yung press conference ni Cebu Governor Gwendolyn Garcia regarding why she countermanded the national policy for quarantine. inexplain ni Governor Garcia yung history ng COVID, yung history ng mga public announcements ng DOH, and yung mga policies that are emanating from Metro Manila pero natatamaan Metro Cebu, the province of Cebu, and the Western Visayas, and lagi na lang daw parang sila yung tampulan, they always come out bad, etc. But she didn't do it in a butangera fashion. She did it with such reason, temperance ba yun? Pag ano, nagtitimpi siya, maayos, magalang, pinakita lang niya na kung susundan ninyo yung science, yung data, medyo dapat sigurong ibahin o pag-isipan ng DOH yung patakaran. Okay, so, and then she shared what happened in Malacanang. She gave credit where credit was due. She acknowledged who was right and who could be wrong or who should reconsider. In other words, Governor Garcia, gave us an example of what leadership is about. Hindi away, hindi banggaan ng ulo. Sabi ko nga, kung yung May, if May was the summer of our discontent as a spin-off from Shakespeare, June seems to be our season of discussion, our season of reason. Maganda po yung set na example ni Governor Garcia, and we will pursue the science that Governor Garcia, the science and medicine that she was mentioning, that should be considered by the national government. Or at least pag-isipan man lang, di ba? Kasi yun naman daw sabi ni Presidente kay Secretary Duque. And Harry Roque, compliments to Secretary Harry Roque, made the statement daw, 10 months ng MGCQ yung Cebu. Bakit tayo ganito pa rin sa NCR? Maybe Cebu is doing something right that we should consider. Kumbaga, it's nice to see a situation where minds are challenged to consider a different option. So itong verse sa Bible from the book of Romans chapter 12 verse 16, live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, wag maangas, but associate with the lowly, never be wise in your own sight. Yan po, no? Anyway, moving forward, the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines, or NGCP, lifted the alert level warnings in parts of Luzon due to the decreasing demand for power. They assured the public that there won't be rotational brownouts for now. To talk more about this, let's welcome the NGCP spokesperson and Attorney Cynthia Alabanza. Attorney, good morning.
Good morning, Cito.
Yeah. First of all, Attorney, kasi I don't want to speak out of turn or, incorrectly. Honestly, hindi ko naintindihan yung NGCP. Ang alam ko lang, pag sinabing NGCP, puro kable, distribution of electricity. Pero may nakita kasi ako, the reason why I asked the NGCP to come in, I saw an announcement dahil kami naman may bahay kami sa Batangas. Meron yung batilik na anunsyo ng power disruption, pero ang laki nung katagang NGCP. So sabi ko, medyo nakakalito ito. Akala ko ba batilik dapat ang nag-a-announce? Bakit NGCP? So could you explain to us the role of NGCP regarding all of this distribution and this power outages?
Okay, let's go back to 2002 when the government decided to privatize the energy industry because NAPCOR at that time was the one in charge of both generation and transmission. So medyo marami siyang debt, so government decided under the presidency of former President Tori Arroyo, they passed the EPIRA law. And under the EPIRA, pinrivatize yung energy industry, specifically si generation and transmission. So nahiwalayan. Ang generation is yung power plants gumagawa ng kuryente. The transmission is the power superhighway. So we run, you're absolutely right, the big towers and the backbone, the energy backbone of the country. So we have operations all the way in the north, in Ilocos, all the way down south to Davao, General Santos, to the tip of Mindanao. So NGCP's role really is to transmit available electricity from the generators to the distributors like Meralco in the Metro Manila area and the surrounding provinces, as well as the other cooperatives and distribution utilities across the country. So, kumbaga, if you're going to look at it as parang a farm to market situation, yung farm where the food is made are the power generators, the access road or the highways that link the farm to the markets, which is your distributors, that's NGCP. Why are we announcing this?
Mm.
Because we have the overview of all the generators that are connected to the grid, as well as all the distribution utilities and cooperatives that draw power from the grid. So we are able to see the real-time balance of electricity, if there is enough, or if there is a scarcity or a shortage in power supply.
So you also have the power to control who gets the electricity or where the electricity is directed.
Yes, we traffic electricity in accordance with set and specific rules
Mhm.
under the Philippine Grid Code and, of course, under the regulation of the Energy Regulatory Commission.
Oh, so you cannot produce electricity, you only
No.
distribute. Okay? Kasi mabuti na yung nagkakaaliwanagan kasi may mga nadinig din akong comment eh. Parang gustong bakbakan yung NGCP. Sabi ko mali-mali, hindi mali kasi tiga padala lang sila yung courier natin, sila yung ating ano ba na, grab deliver kumbaga ng kuryente, hindi sila generator. Now, ang tanong lang attorney, wa- how do you determine who gets the power when the disruption happens, etc.? Kasi may mga nagsususpecha na baka naman yung nasa probinsya, as often as is the case, baka yung mga probinsya are made to sacrifice their supply for the benefit of Metro Manila. And the second question is, why are we having these outages if we were to believe what the pronouncements are of business and government na bagsak ang ekonomiya na many of the factories aren't running, bakit pa rin kinakapos pa rin tayo, attorney?
Okay, so the first one, how do we determine who gets what? No, very good question. Maraming factors na iniisip na kinoconsider dyan. One of them, of course, is proportion of the demand. So for example po, no, the Meralco franchise area, huge. It represents 70% of the demand in the Luzon grid. So that means naturally 70% of the available power supply, whatever it is, will go to them. And then the other 30% that is distributed along the grid will also be similarly allocated. Further factoring in the technical limitations, because right now not all highways or not all roadways are equal. Some are bigger and some are smaller, depending really on the needs of the grid. So, but basically, it's really proportionate share.
Okay. So, pero when you say proportionate share, is it proportionate share in terms of electricity or in terms of hours available?
Well, in terms of demand, so let's say you have, let's take Meralco as an example because it's the easiest one. No?
Mm.
They have 70% of the demand for the grid on a general daily basis. So if you, whatever amount of electricity you have, whether it's at the time when there's enough supply or during the time when you don't have enough supply, 70% of the demand really is coming from the
Okay.
Meralco franchise area because
Yeah.
it's in Metro Manila. So
Yeah,
whatever
but how
happens,
do,
yeah,
sorry, attorney.
yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
naintindihan ko na yung 70%. Pasensya ka na, mahina tayo sa
Mm-mm.
Math 11 eh. Okay, 70%, di bibigay natin sa Metro Manila. Okay, paano mo ngayon ikakalat yan? Kasi nagtataka lang ako, sabi ko, bakit si ganito na brown out sila? Bakit si ganito hindi na brown out? Parang
Okay.
you kind of wonder, is this computer driven na parang lottery kung kanino pupunta yung kuryente?
Okay. Let me explain again. No? So at the level of the distribution utility, it's NGCP that allocates.
Hmm.
Okay. So for example, again, let's take Batelec. I'm also from my father's also from Batangas, so that's also very familiar to me.
Mm. Okay.
So Batelec, no, and they have, let's say, a 10% share, based on demand. So they will get the 10% of what's available. Now, what
Mhm.
happens within Batelec, that's up to them. So
Okay.
we allocate to the distribution utilities, but the distribution utilities or the cooperatives, they're the ones who decide within their franchise area who goes first, who goes next, and yung rotation nila. So in
Mhm.
certain areas, perhaps, depending on the internal configuration of the cooperative, it might not be equal. It might be easier to turn off one side than the other. So that's really up to the distribution utilities on how to manage internally within their franchise area.
Yeah, and I've also heard of urban myths. I will call it an urban myth that, if you live near the house of so and so who is an official of this company, or if you're near Malacanang, very rare na magkakaroon ng power failure because of the security implications. But anyway, going back to our discussion, so everything is proportionately driven now. Where are we in terms of capacities right now? Talaga bang manipis na manipis? And what about NGCP? If there were an increase in the supply, is NGCP fully capable of distributing all the power?
Well, in terms of capability to distribute, yes, we are able to transmit all the available power to everyone who needs it. So right now,
Hmm.
the grid is sufficiently equipped with enough facilities to ensure that all customers or distribution utilities that are connected to us, if they need a certain power amount of power, we will be able to transmit that if the
Mhm.
power exists.
Okay.
Now, like I said yesterday, you're absolutely right. Medyo lumuwag yung supply ng kuryente because towards the afternoon, a large power plant that was on shutdown came back on board. So we did lift the yellow and red alert for the rest of the day. However, in a short span of a couple of hours, additional plants went offline. So we did actually raise another yellow alert towards the later evening. That was, I think, at between 8 to 10. I'm not sure. I wasn't paying attention too much on the details. But there was another yellow alert lifted over the grid. The reason I mentioned this is I really want to demonstrate how dynamic and how it changes from hour to hour yung balance, because really there isn't sufficient supply or generating power in the grid to keep us isolated or isolated from that kind of fluctuation within a few hours.
Okay, well, do you foresee further rotational brownouts? Kasi everybody keeps talking about rainy season, and I have to remind people, hello, ilang beses na natin sinasabing rainy season, pagkatapos ng tag-isang ulan, biglang 2 linggo ng init na naman. Are you expecting further rotational brownouts, and for how long?
Even during rainy season, especially for this year, no, there are still maintenance shutdowns, yung regular maintenance scheduled shutdowns of the different power plants. In fact, as early as April, we sent out a statement flagging the possibility of red alerts, I think towards July and August, and also April. The April red alert did not push through, only by happy circumstance, because Metro Manila, which is part of the Meralco franchise area, was put under ECQ. So that significantly lowered demand, thereby, in effect, saving the Luzon grid from the red alert status last April. But we do foresee a second round this coming July, August. But we'll see. It really all depends on the power situation and the dynamic of supply and demand, if that will push through.
So our red alert situations are primarily because of power generation shutdowns and has nothing to do with the demand or that there is no surge in demand? Because yun nga yung sinasabi ng iba, wala namang masyadong nakabukas na mga kumpanya at opisina. Paano nangyari? So is it primarily power generation issue?
Yes, it is primarily generation driven but aggravated by the weather. So you can see yesterday we did raise the red and yellow alert yesterday, but because again by happy circumstance there was a storm passing through, there's a
Mhm.
typhoon Dante, so the temperatures went down significantly, and that did drive demand enough that there was no actual load dropping or power interruptions implemented through the day.
Okay, now my last two questions. I hope my memory is not failing me this morning. Pero whatever happened to that issue regarding NGCP being overtaken or ruled by the Chinese group or something or company? Ano ba nangyari dun?
But ang NGCP po kasi we're 60% Filipino. Sorry, yeah, 40% foreigner and 60% Filipino. And this is in accordance with our franchise under Republic Act 9511, our concession
Mm.
agreement, and of course the Constitution.
Mm.
And just to let you know why this I find this very funny. It's because we did not choose to have a foreign technical partner. It was actually a requirement of government when they privatized the transmission business. They
Mhm.
required an expert to run a grid, and because we're such a small grid, it naturally meant it was going to be a foreign technical expert. So it's not like
Mhm.
our stockholders decided, oh, we want to partner up with so and so country. This was a
Mhm.
requirement. You needed to find a foreign technical partner, and this went through an open public bidding conducted by the PSAM, or the Power Sector Assets and Liabilities Management Corporation, AGOCC. So they
Mhm.
conducted an open and public bidding, and there were many other consortiums who had also foreign technical partners who bid on this concession. And it just so
Mhm.
happened that it was our consortium that eventually incorporated into NGCP that won the franchise, the concession.
Okay, well, it's good to ask, questions from the perspective of an ignoramus because you are reminded. Kasi alam mo, kumisa marami sa amin, iniisip namin NGCP government, hindi na pala government ang NGCP, private sector na kayo, private company na kayo. Iniisip namin, oh bakit nagpapasok ang mga Chinese diyan? Kalabas-labasan nasa batas pala 'yon, requirement of law.
Yes.
So wala rin kayong magagawa, but that's all good to be placed out there para at least maliwanag na hindi ito pinapakialaman ng kung sino-sino. Ito ay ginawang batas. Kung tama o mali yung batas, kailangan sundin yung batas. In any case, my last question, attorney, has the NGCP managed to typhoon-proof our distribution lines? Kasi alam mo kami na malilikot ang paa, gala ako, nakikita ko yung mga distribution system ninyo, and my thoughts are always, I pray to God that the typhoons don't ruin this because the poor people in the provinces are the first to suffer. Kamusta naman po? How are we in terms of typhoon proofing our distribution lines?
Well, to be honest, I don't think we can ever typhoon-proof entirely the transmission grid.
Mhm.
Maybe, I think honestly, it's because we're seeing a lot of stronger typhoons, but NGCP does adjust. One of the milestones, at least for me personally, was Yolanda, when we saw wow unprecedented wind speeds and strengths
Mhm.
that really put NGCP to a challenge. And I still look back on that period of time with such pride, because I saw the ingenuity and the spirit of the Filipino line personnel, and I saw how they did it. So anyway, 20 years ago, a super typhoon was few and far between, but now in the 2000s, you see it almost every year. In fact,
Mhm.
I learned, I always thought that the rainy season would be June, July. It's not. Typhoon season pala, super typhoon season is November and December and January. Yolanda was in November, Rolly was in December. So all these things happen pala towards the end of the year. So
Yes.
NGCP does adjust. After Yolanda, we increased the wind rating of our towers, our backbone towers. Most of them are now at 270 to 320 kilometers per hour wind rating or wind speed. They're designed to withstand higher wind speeds. The ones we inherited from government were only up to 180 kilometers per hour wind rating. So we did adjust and we are improving the design of our towers. However, we also have to balance that with the impact on the consumers of our rates. We can't just start from scratch, build everything up into stronger wind speed. So we do adjust the wind rating as we build. Because if we just start from scratch and tear everything down to improve it, it will spell a huge cost impact to the consumer.
Okay, well, we let's just all pray and klaro, dito makikita yung bata ka, matanda ako kasi alam ko yung December eh. Yung basta December, November, December may sinabing bagyo, Diyos ko po. Yan ang
Yes.
dasal namin kasi alam namin any typhoon that comes in those months, perwisyong en grande. Thank you very much, Attorney. And we hope that all goes well for NGCP para maintindihan din ng mga tao na tiga-deliver lang kayo. Malaking bagay, it's a very important role, but you are neither the generator nor the power company, so to speak. Thank you very much for your time and God bless you, Attorney.
Thank you very much and good morning.
Okay, yan po si Attorney Cynthia Alabanza, spokesperson of the NGCP. And, it's good to refresh our memory. And from time to time, I also forget that the NGCP has been privatized. Right? Most of us don't know that the Chinese partner or a foreign partnership was based on the presumption of legislators and contract designers that the NGCP would require foreign expertise. Kung bakit hindi ko alam kasi ang dami-dami namang inhinyero, eksperto, maabot pa hanggang Saudi. Problema nga lang, minamani natin. Dati pag sinabi ninyong minamani, small, that's so easy. That's peanuts. No, now we treat them like monkeys. We treat the experts in our own countries like monkeys. We pay them peanuts. Okay, let's go for a quick break. And when we return, if I'm not mistaken, we will be talking about Bagyong Dante here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda. You are watching us via Cignal TV, channels 8 and 250, as well as on Facebook.com/OneNewsPH and on YouTube, OneNewsPH. Okay, let's go to the spokesperson of the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council, Mr. Mark Timbal. Mark, good morning to you once again.
Sir Cito, good morning. Bagyo na
Ito na.
naman.
Bagyo na naman. Okay lang. At least maka-update lang. Quick lang naman, Mark. Just an update. Kasi parang inaasahan ko buong gabi. Tatamaan tayo dito sa Metro Manila ng malalakas na hangin. Sabi nila kahapon, uulanin ng husto, mag-ingat. But it's kind of confusing how this typhoon is going. Could you give us an update, please?
Yes, sir. What's been happening is that Storm Dante, Tropical Storm Dante, has been shifting tracks these past few days. Ngayon po, nasa West Philippine Sea na siya. Initially, we thought that Metro Manila, tama kayo, mahagip nga sana siya nung bagyo. But because of the westward shift of the storm, nag-signal number 1 lang tayo, and we just had this strong rains last night. Although ngayon, signal number 1 pa rin tayo dito sa Metro Manila, and we're experiencing some rain showers here. But in other provinces, especially those who are under signal number 2, and yung naka-experience na signal number 2, medyo naging malakas talaga yung buhos ng ulan in those areas. As of this morning, sir, our casualty count remains as is. We lost 3 people in Mindanao, although we're still verifying whether their circumstance of death was directly caused by the storm. We also
I noticed, Mark, we have much lower mortality rates coming from out of typhoons nowadays. Has this to do with the way the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council has been addressing problems of typhoons, or are we so well set up all over the country na parang automatic na yung evacuation pag may bagyo?
Yes, sir. Contributing element po itong ating improvement and development sa disaster management system natin, sir. But this is but a portion of it, kasi yung mga kabayan natin mas aware na sila. They're more conscious of what to do before, during, and after an emergency, and they're very much more cooperative right now compared to the previous years. This is possible because of the terrible experiences that we've had, na ayaw na ng mga tao ma-experience nila yung ganon, especially the loss of lives that we've encountered. For example, total na mention niyo si Yolanda during that previous interview.
Yeah.
We lost more than 6,000 souls in that episode of our disaster management history. But in Super Typhoon Rolly, we did not exceed, or we did not even reach 1,000 number of victims or fatalities. This is because, number 1, we have been improving our warning systems. People have been receiving warnings on a regular basis through the text alerts, as well as the warnings that are being carried by the media through the usual channels of communication and through social media as well. Minsan nga nagre-reklamo na yung mga ibang tao dahil naguguluhan daw sila sa pagtulog or sa paglalaro nila ng mobile games nila because of the warnings that we're giving on a regular basis, sir.
It's ironic. Ngayon, umaangal sila pag nadidisrupt yung kanilang cellphone. Nung panahon namin, nung kami ay mga bata, naaasar kami pag biglang may makikita ka sa TV, this is not an emergency. This is from the national, so whatever. Meron nun yung parang national emergency broadcast, etc. But okay, it's good to know that our emergency response protocol is getting better and better. But will we ever, kasi kung napanood mo yung video kanina, Mark, yung mga baha, mga nasirang mga barko, it tells us that as far as ships, boats go, are concerned, parang wala pa rin mga safe havens for these vessels to go. And then sa mga kalsada na nababaha, katulad na napanood natin, would the council be inclined in the future to go beyond disaster response and management to preventing them from happening? Kasi kamakailan lang, sabi ko nga sa team agenda, I think we should make it our agenda to revisit yung mga tree planting, reforestation, etc. Kasi everybody goes to the canals, everybody goes to the pumping stations, pero yung mga kalsada natin at sidewalk, puro simento, wala tayong planting programs. Has the council members ever talked about that?
Yes, sir. Part of the program po talaga ng NDRRMC is it's actually focused on disaster prevention and mitigation as well as disaster preparedness. Ang nakikita lang kasi natin talaga na naha-highlight pag panahon ng bagyo is the actual response activities. For example, yung na-mention po ninyo, the conservation effort of the watersheds. Tuloy-tuloy yung ating tree planting programs na ini-implement sa pangunguna ng DENR. And other agencies of the government are conducting tree planting activities, not just of the reforestation of the mountains, but the planting of mangroves to ensure that coastal towns, coastal areas will be protected from storm surges or possibly tsunami. We've also examine these policies relating to maritime activities during storms. The automatic policy is if an area is under a storm warning signal, there's an automatic suspension of maritime activities.
What about evacuating all of those as well? Kasi parang ini-evacuate natin yung tao, pero hindi natin ini-evacuate yung mga sasakyan. We barely have enough boats. And yet, ang mangyayari, tatabi na lang, iaangkla, tatalian ng husto, imbis na, I mean, it's like from the lessons of Pearl Harbor, ika nga, wag mo nang intaying mabomba ka, ialis mo na kung alam mong darating yung bagyo.
That's correct. Part of the policy dyan kasi, sir, for example, this is already being practiced by our fishermen. Na yung mga boat nila talagang sinasampa na sa Pampanga.
Sinasampa.
Yes po. However, may mga policies din po tayo sa safer areas na kung saan doon na dapat i-angkla yung mga barko na hindi pwede maglayag during that time. There's a safe distance. I'm not very sure about this procedures with the Philippine Coast Guard, pero may safe distance sa mismong port, merong mga safe inlets na pwedeng pagpatingan noong barko to ensure na hindi siya itutulak ng tubig to the rocks or ma-run aground siya because of the storm surges. Minsan lang po kasi talaga na sa sobrang tindi talaga ng alon, minsan bumibitaw yung anchor or nagkakaroon na ipupush talaga yung barko to hit other sea vessels.
Yeah. So,
and this is
okay.
po for further improvements.
Okay, so what are we looking at as far as Typhoon Dante is concerned?
Yeah. So far, sir, tropical storm pa lang naman siya. Hindi pa naman siya.
Okay. Hindi pa typhoon. Sorry. Alam mo naman kasi nung panahon namin, walang tropical eh. Lahat bagyo, period.
Technically nga, sir, kaya po pag bagyo lang ang sinasabi ko. But Dante will be bringing more rains here in the Philippines over the later part of the week. Although ang sabi ko ng Pag-asa, as I've heard, baka it's either maghumina pa siya or mag-dissipate, but it will be moving towards an easterly direction na pag nabagtas na niya yung West Philippine Sea going off to Taiwan. We have been receiving reports that our local disaster councils as well as the regional councils going up from Metro Manila, Central Luzon, Cordilleras, Ilocos, and Cagayan regions have already made their preparations. No sailing ulit sa West Philippine Sea muna dahil sa bagyo, lalo na sa mga smaller craft. And all evacuation centers have now been prepared along with the relief items.
Yung bang mga Chinese vessel nag-evacuate na rin?
Well, wala akong pakialam.
Yun lang pala kailangan, Tatawag pa tayo sa US Navy. Magpadasal na lang tayo ng bagyo sa West Philippine Sea. Okay, Mark, thank you very much for your time. And we look forward to the better days where your organization the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council will be moving towards mitigation. Kumbaga, para maiwasan na, mapigilan na, putting up port safety harbors, etc., reforestation, at saka pabisita mo na rin, Mark, pag nagmi-meeting kayo, yung mga ating lab for concrete jungle. Kasi ako, ang asawa ko, tiga Holland, expert sila sa mga baha, water controls, etc. Doon, ang mga sidewalk, hindi simentado, may mga pavers para kung umulan, magyelo, pag natunaw, pasok sa lupa ang tubig. Dito, lahat ng pwedeng simentohin, sisimentohin, nakasimento na yung sidewalk, lalagyan pa ng simento ang estatwa. Okay, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you very much, sir. And makaasa po kayo that we are going to continue with our prevention mitigation activities, pati preparedness. Yung ating urban planning po, papalakasin pa po natin yan, kagaya ng mga suggestions niyo, sir. Then this will be very helpful for all of us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. That's Mr. Mark Timbal of the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council. Malaking bagay po yung kanilang ginagawa at tulong nila. And we will have a momentary break, and when we return, pag-usapan natin yung science na sinasabi ni Governor Gwendolyn Garcia tungkol dito sa COVID at naging difference of opinion here on Agenda. Okay, welcome back to the program Agenda, and for purposes of brevity, nagkaroon po ng hindi pagkakaintindihan a week ago. There was a difference of opinion between the national government and the province of Cebu regarding quarantine, swabbing of returning OFWs and returning Filipinos to the province of Cebu. Cebu wanted to do it one way. The national government insists that it be done based on a national protocol, and it ended with the flights going to Cebu being diverted to Metro Manila, which, to be quite honest about it, to be frank about it, pissed off a lot of Filipinos and found the idea stupid, because one would think, can you people not talk amongst yourselves instead of inconveniencing so many passengers go Cebu bound and landing in Naiya. In any case, to complement the president, ang ginawa ni presidente, pinatawag niya, he called, invited Governor Garcia to Malacanang to discuss the matter. That, I believe, is a very good example for many of us. Kung merong hindi pagkakaintindihan, face-to-face, it's biblical. Face-to-face, let's talk. You explain, I will listen. Hindi yung I order you, or sabi ni ganito, so therefore I order you. In any case, what happened was the outcome seems to be good. Both sides expressed each other's view, and the president said, let's study the matter. Okay, let us now listen in on what happened. Not listen in, but let's speak to a previous guest on Agenda, Dr. Mary Jean Loreche, who is the chief pathologist spokesperson for the Department of Health Region 7. She was in that meeting and she has been involved in all of this. Dr. Jean, good morning, ma'am.
Magandang araw po sa atin. Thank you.
Talagang gusto na, pasensya ka na, Doc G, na talaga ang kulit kay Gwen na please mag-appear ka dito para magkaintindihan dahil ang daming nagngingit-ngit. But you were in that meeting. Could you please explain to our viewers, ano ba yung, let's approach it medically, no? What was the difference and why did Cebu have a different view of quarantine and swabbing versus the national protocol?
Hindi naman talaga sila magkalayo kung titingnan natin. At pinag-aralan din naman po natin base sa data natin. Naiintindihan po natin kung bakit ang national binago nila yung day of swabbing, no, ng mga arriving OFWs at saka returning overseas Filipinos. So diyan po tayo medyo nagkaroon ng problema kasi una sa lahat po nung nagsimula yung mga variants of concern na yan nung Disyembre, nung nagkaroon tayo ng mga flag down countries, ang ginawa po ng IATF, nag-order po sila sa atin upon arrival yung swabbing. Pagkatapos po, pagdating ng Enero, kalagitnaan, sabi na naman nila day 5. Pagkatapos po nitong Mayo, day 7 na naman po. So kung titingnan natin ang siyensya nito, kung ikaw talaga ay gusto mong makita kung ang virus na sa katawan mo, lalong-lalo na kasi magkaiba yung asymptomatic at symptomatic eh. Asymptomatic, wala kang nararamdaman. So ngayon ititest ikaw. So kailan ba makikita na mataas ang posibilidad na magkakaroon ikaw ng positive na swabbing test result? So usually po, nandun yan sa 5 hanggang 7 araw kung sakali man na meron talaga ikaw nitong virus. Pero kung sakali naman po na may simptomas na ikaw, kailangan i-test ka kaagad. So, yan yung talaga ang background niyan. Pero kung titingnan natin, nung nagsimula yung mga variants of concern, tayo dito sa Cebu, ang ginawa po natin, nag-conduct tayo ng 2 swab upon arrival at saka day 5. Kasi gusto nating makita yan eh. So mga bandang Enero, Pebrero, Disyembre, yan yung ginawa natin. Kahit na nagbago ng guidance ang ating IATF, sinunod pa rin natin kung ano yung siyensya. So ngayon po, nakita natin, wala namang pagkakaiba. Kumbaga, may makikita ka talagang positibo sa upon arrival, may makikita ka pa minsan-minsan sa day 7. So ang ginawa po natin, ay tiningnan natin ano ang pinakamagandang gawin. So, tayo dito po sa One Cebu, nung kami po ay nag-meeting in the interagency task force dito, yung iba-ibang mga mga government agencies, na pag-usapan hetong mga bagay na ito. Una, kung sakaling susundin na day 7, yung latest na guidelines ni National, day 7, pagdating sa airport, iko-quarantinas ka agad. Pagkatapos nun, itetest mo siya on day 7. Tayo po, ang ginawa po natin, kasi nakita din po natin, naintindihan natin din ang OWA. Mauubusan po tayo ng hotel, rooms, kung ganun eh. Kasi papatong-patong po yan eh. Kahit na daily ang arrival mo 500 lang eh. You need 5,000 rooms in 10 days. Kasi everyday may papasok yan eh. So what would be the most logical, basic, scientific way of on-the-ground doing it? So we have to do upon arrival. Kasi una sa lahat, mas maaga mong madidetect kung nandun si virus. Kasi yan makikita mo na yan eh. Pangalawa, hindi na siya makakahawa dahil hindi siya gagala-gala. Let's face the fact na yung quarantine hotels natin, wala pong 24/7 nagbabantay dyan. Yun pong ating mga hotels na yan, wala pong mga military dapat nagbabantay kasi hindi naman yan sila mga kriminal na dapat nandyan lang kayo, ilalock-in kayo. Pangalawa po, kailangan po nating maintindihan na kung sila, kasi tayo, confident tayo sa One Cebu dahil in place yung ating processes and protocols. Meaning to say, yung ating barangay health emergency response team, yung barangay health workers at saka ang LGU, alam po nila yan na pag nirelease namin at negative na yung ating mga OFWs at ROFs on the 3rd day, itutuloy po yung quarantinas either sa bahay or sa barangay isolation center. Yun po ang hindi nila naiintindihan. Akala po nila ipapagala na natin sila. Hindi nila naiintindihan na pagdating sa LGU, pag indoor sa kanila, proceed with the quarantine. And on day 7, magre-reswab tayo sa kanila to follow the guidelines of the national. So medyo nag-tweaking lang tayo para una sa lahat, we'll be able to catch early on yung mga nag-positive and have full containment. Number 2, para ma-decongest ang mga hotels natin. Pangatlo, kasi naniniwala tayo, confident naman tayo na kaya silang bantayan sa kanilang mga lugar. Pang-apat, pinakamahalaga po sa lahat, ay yung emotional distress ng ating mga kababayan na uuwi on an emergency. May namatay, kailangan mag-attend. O kaya naman nasa intensive care unit, grabe yung ka-family member. O kaya naman 10 araw o 14 dias lang ang ibinigay sa kanila na bakasyon ng kanilang kumpanya at kailangan na silang bumalik. Isn't it ludicrous po na, illogical to hold them in a very small hotel room for 10 to 14 days when we can do something about it? And so doon po tayo nanggagaling, sir.
Okay. So what was the big deal? Because Dr. Jean, from last year pa, alam na natin na yun yung protocol naman na magpa-swab, magpa-quarantine, after so many days, i-release mo, quarantine pa rin doon sa kanilang, di ba? Kanya nga tayo nagkaroon ng mga LSI, etc. Kasi ayaw nang tanggapin ng mga barangay yung mga pinapadala doon. And then pag nando doon, babantayan na naman. At tapos i-test sila. Kanya nga naging issue pa yung mga RT-PCR na mahal, etc. So from the way you explained it, nothing seems to have changed. How did it get to the point where flights of OFWs were being diverted to Metro Manila? Ano yung pinag-awayan mismo? Yung number of days lang?
Parang ganun po, na parang insistent kasi ang ating IATF, ang ating national, na kailangang sundin namin in toto. Kung baga, we cannot make any innovative changes in the guidelines. Kung baga, heto siya dapat one national policy tayo. Pero po, sa totoo lang, dapat tingnan din po natin yung kalagayan on the grounds. Ano nga bang meron? Anong pwedeng gawin? Paano tayo maka-adjust? Paano tayo maka-adapt? Para masagot natin lahat po yan. Kasi it has to be a holistic approach
Yeah, but with all due respect to whoever is concerned, parang hindi ba sila rin na nagsabing at the end of the day, we will leave it to the local government authority? Dahil hindi nila pwedeng i-manage lahat. Dahil at the end of the day, the situation on the ground differs from point to point. So, pero biglang ngayon dapat susunod ang Cebu? I'm sorry. I'm not being political here, Dr. Jean, and I know you are part of the Department of Health. But as I pointed out, I think, the reason I really, alam mo, Dr. Jean, bihira ako yung makikinig ako ng full press conference and salaysay. I don't have much patience for those, but inumpisan ko, tinapos ko yung presentation ni Governor Garcia because it seemed logical. Your points were swabbing on the first day and swabbing on the 5th day kamo will catch it. The other issue was, pag inuna mo muna yung quarantine, nakakalimutan natin na hindi naman binabayaran ng gobyerno yung buong period of quarantine. So, and then, hindi lahat OFW. May mga returning Filipinos na estudyante, for instance, na makukulong for 14 days. By the time the quarantine is finished, time to go back to wherever, to their scholarship, etc. So parang, okay, yung humanitarian point was magkaroon ng oversight sa humanitarian point. The results were the same or better. Kasi parang sinabi ni Governor Gwen Garcia that the results based on your data and verification is that things were better in Cebu. Pinuri pa nga niya si Harry Roque at sabi na mabuti pa si Harry Roque made a clear point. Why has Cebu been in MGCQ for 10 months while we are still in GCQ? Paano ba yun?
Totoo po 'yan. Isa sa indicators dapat na tiningnan nila nung sila nakita nila na we deviated a little bit. We just tweaked naman, no? And we were innovative in our approach because we had to consider all these factors. So kung titingnan niyo po talaga, nung nagsimula yung mga variants of concern na yan, na pumasok dito, kahit na noong kasagsagan po ng ating second wave natin dito sa One Cebu, ay hindi po tayo bumaba ng ating quarantine status. Ibig pong sabihin, tuloy po tayo nag-MGCQ kasi alam po natin kung ano yung gagawin natin. And this is actually a showcase of how we are able to live with COVID. So hindi nga po namin mawari bakit ganun.
Okay, so ideally dapat first okay, mukhang nawala yata yung signal natin kay Dr. Jean na problema na kaagad diyan, sinasabi ko na nga ba, but in any case so there you are, ladies and gentlemen, parang nag-tweak lang ang Cebu. Hindi sila, kasi naman kuminsan yung iba pag nire-report parang defiant. They are rebelling, etc. Medyo yun na nga yung kinaasar kahapon ni Governor Gwen Garcia na bakit ba parang kami na lang sa Western Visayas, you are putting us in one basket even if the COVID cases are separate, parang lahat Western Visayas and then lagi na lang kami ang bad. Mabuti na lang napag-usapan yun. In the meeting with the president, according to Governor Garcia, what happened was the president asked her why she was doing it. She explained based on the science, based on what Dr. Jean was saying, na as far as swabbing is concerned, the first day and the fifth day and the seventh day, parang lumalabas similar results, predictability. And then, ang problema, yung 14-day quarantine, pag 14-day quarantine mo, ang binabayaran lang ng government for OFWs, 2 days, sino magbabayad ng 12 days? Pagkatapos, ubos na yung panahon na binibigay para makapunta dito yung nagbabakasyon, yung iba hindi nagbabakasyon, not everyone. And that was a very good point that Governor Gwen raised yesterday. Not all returning Filipinos are here for a vacation. Many of them are here because of tragedy in the family or because of legal requirements, etc. Nangungutang pangaraw yung iba, in the words of Gov. Okay, Doc Jean, you're back? Okay,
Yes.
Doc Jean.
So balikan ko lang
Yeah.
po, no? Yeah. You mentioned kasi na yung binabayaran ng government for the quarantine of our OFWs ay totoo po yung 10 to 14 days. Si OWA po ang nagbabayad noon. It is the returning overseas Filipinos that is out of their pockets. Now, based on our data again here in OWA, dito lang po sa atin, we'll just talk about one Cebu, the Cebu province and the 3 highly urbanized cities. We found out that if you have this X number of arriving OFWs and you pay 1,400 per day sa hotel accommodation nila, kung titingnan po natin yan, napakalaki po ng difference nung kanilang binabayaran ng ating government. So, classic example lang po, magbibigay ako. Kung 550 po yung darating sa isang araw, ilalagay po natin sa hotel natin ng 10 araw, sabihin na natin, kasi day 7 yung swabbing natin, ang gagastusin po ng government is nasa 7,700,000 just for 550 passengers per day, no, na darating. Samantalang yung ginagawa natin, upon arrival, lalabas po yung result on the second or third day, maximum of 3 days stay in the hotel, the government will spend only 2,310,000. So, you know the huge discrepancy when you talk also of cost-benefit analysis and resource conservation. So isa po yan sa tiningnan natin. Pero kung titingnan din po natin, mas kawawa yung returning overseas Filipinos. Kasi out of pocket yan eh. Imagine naman natin, magkano lang naman po ang inuwing pera niyan. Pagkatapos, inutang pa yung iba niyan, di ba? Wala nang maibibigay sa pamilya nila. So all in all, provided that your processes and protocols are in place, and our numbers will speak for itself. Our critical care utilization, which is actually one big time event where you get to see the condition on the grounds.
Yeah.
Critical care utilization is the hospital bed allocation and utilization. We have been consistent at around 15, 18%. As of yesterday, it's only 14.4%. Meaning to say, meron tayong inilagak na kwarto na 862.
In other words, pasensya ka na, Doc Jean, kasi naputulan tayo pagkatas na ubusan ng oras ngayon. In other words, you are saving money for both the local and the national government. You are saving time for all the Filipinos who are returning, whether workers or non-workers, and you are simply tweaking the swabbing and the testing, and it is supposed to be beneficial to all. So, maraming salamat, Doc Jean. We will continue to pursue this subject matter. Pakisabi naman kay Gob kung pwede. One-on-one, isang oras bigay ko sa kanya. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Doc Jean.
Yes, magandang araw po sa ating lahat. Thank you.
Okay, yan po si Dr. Mary Jean Loreche, Chief Pathology and spokesperson of the DOH. Hindi naman po siya kontrabida, hindi naman siya po kontra sa DOH. Pinapakita lang, and sometimes we need to open our minds and reduce our egos. And wala po akong pinapatamaan. Ako mismo, kuminsan, may angas ako eh. Kuminsan mayabang ako. And the Lord tells me, Hoy, Cito, bawas-bawasan mo yung ego mo. Kasi if you follow my way, you will learn that you can learn. And that's the lesson for today. When we reduce our ego, we can learn something. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. God bless all of you.